I can confirm the webcast has started, so please begin.
That's good. Hey, well, good afternoon, anyone who is watching, and good afternoon to all the officers who are supporting this decision day. We've got the one item on the agenda, which is the annual core infrastructure grants to voluntary and community sector organisations. And Graham, it's your paper.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Reid. So the recommendations effectively are in two parts. I'll hand over to my colleague Sarah Snowden to talk us through the paper in just a second. But just to say there are two elements to the recommendations before you today. The first one is the award of £495,990 to Community First to support Hampshire Councils for Voluntary Sector Network for the coming financial year. And the second request and recommendation is with regard to a grant of £63,000 to be awarded to Citizens Advice Hampshire, again for the 22-23 financial year. I'll hand over though at that point to talk us through any particular detail within the paper before you today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, so the report details how important the VCS is to deliver HCC's strategic plan and prevent demand for our services. It also talks about the value of the work delivered during the pandemic and now also during recovery. If you see paragraph 5, this explains the infrastructure grant fund and how this is spent. And then paragraph 7 moves on to Citizens Advice, and you can see there some examples of the fantastic coverage that Citizens Advice has across Hampshire. Paragraph 10 provides some examples, which I'm happy to talk through, about how the CVS network supported Hampshire during COVID. And there's also an appendix, Appendix A, gives some headline figures on the impact of the work and how the funding has supported this fantastic work. Citizens Advice also achieved some amazing things last year, and you can see there's over 42,000 citizens helped. And that was actually at last count. So some really fantastic numbers showing the impact of this funding. This year, the grants process in paragraph 14 was slightly different to previous years. So just for the record within the report, we did apply a slightly different, more rigorous approach. So we advertised both of these grants on the County Council website. Organisations were welcome to apply as long as they met the eligibility. And then the submissions were considered at a grant panel against a scoring system, which again was slightly different this year. The panel was senior county council officers, including myself, and then we scored and then awarded accordingly. Following this panel, we did recommend Citizens Advice receive the grant of £63,000, as Graham said, to continue to support the services in Hampshire for one more year. And then Community First received the £495,990 as the lead organisation to distribute these funds accordingly. On the evidence, and there's lots of evidence regarding what's been achieved and the value of this funding, we are recommending that we continue this for 22-23 and that it remains at the same level. The grant levels are within the budgeted cash limit for 22-23, and this budget has already had a reduction of 10% as part of the wider savings programme. We are recommending as well that these are one-year only grants, and this is really to reflect the uncertain financial context in that we're currently operating, and we are recommending that this is reviewed on an annual basis should we want to change this in the future. The organisations that will be awarded subsequent to your decision, they do sign to accept that this will be awarded to this period only and that we cannot commit funding past that point. And then finally, paragraph 20 discusses the monitoring, and we will be putting in extensive monitoring meetings with Pete Stokes, one of the officers, myself and Graham. And these will be regular on a monthly basis and also a more formal quarterly meeting to ensure that they are delivering on what they proposed within their bid application. So to conclude, I hope the report demonstrates they are continuing to add value. Their work is critical to help HCC and Hampshire, and that we recommend that we award both these grants.
Okay, thank you. Can I just perhaps draw out a couple of points? I'm sure that the organisations would like to have more than a one-year grant, but I'm assuming that the position is that we can't do that in the absence of a multi-year grant to ourselves from the government. So we really are, we have our hands tied on this one.
Yes, and I think that's what we're recommending. Graham?
Yeah, so I think that is the situation is as set out. We would, of course, in an ideal world, and I recognise we don't live in anything near an ideal world, but in an ideal world, we recognise that a multi-year award would be preferable, not only for us, but also for the organisation receiving such an award. What we want to avoid is them being distracted within the year of delivery by thinking about the next year. And that's, as Sarah has already said, it's something that we will continue to keep under review. And should the situation change or for other reasons, we feel that a multi-year award would be preferable going forward, then certainly that's what we would look to bring forward in conversation with you, Councillor Reid. But at this moment in time, it's a one-year award. We've been very clear with those that submitted applications. So there is no room for any confusion or any lack of understanding on that.
Okay, thank you. And the second point, Sarah, you gave reference to the tightened up disciplines regarding the Community First and grant. You actually introduced quite a powerful tendering process, didn't you, which I think you may have underplayed. It's quite a significant improvement in the disciplines that enabled you to make this recommendation.
Correct, Councillor Reid, thank you. So it was a grants process that we introduced, and Pete and his team are very experienced in the grant process. It's moved across under adults, under Graham's leadership, and we decided this was a much more transparent, fair and robust way to do this. And actually we had some really fantastic feedback from parties that were involved with this, that it was a really positive experience because it made them think really deeply about what they needed to achieve, what they wanted to achieve for future years and how they could support Hampshire. So yes, very robust and very fair.
And my understanding is that although Community First have come out on top on this occasion, they were pushed quite hard, and we have some strength in depth now.
Yes, they were pushed extremely hard and it was very competitive.
Well, that's good. It makes me feel comfortable that were they to find themselves in difficulties, we do have alternative organisations that could take over.
We certainly do.
Well, that's good.
Thank you. Could I just add a couple of further comments, if I may, Councillor Reid? So I think I would like to particularly pay credit to Sarah, to Pete, and also to another colleague, Nikki Ward, in terms of the process that's been applied. I'm being a bit of a pedant here, but it wasn't a tender process. It was a grant application process, and I think that's important in terms of where we've arrived at. But certainly the openness and transparency of the process, and indeed the feedback that the organisations that submitted applications for the grant have received and will continue to receive, I think is a strength of the process as we go forward from here. And I agree absolutely with your comment about strength in depth. We need the whole of the voluntary community sector to succeed in supporting our residents, and it's certainly in our interests, but also our residents' interests, that we've got the organisations that we have operating across Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're giving a feedback to the organisations on how we evaluated them and
Yes.
their strengths and weaknesses?
Yep, the full scoring system, so we'll be talking through that with them.
Well, that's very good. Does anybody have anything else they wish to add?
Not for me, thank you.
Okay, so the recommendations are that I approve 495,990 to Community First to support the Hampshire Councils for Voluntary Sector Network for the coming financial year, which I'm pleased to do, and that I give approval to award a grant of 63,000 to Citizens Advice Hampshire for the year 22-23. And I agree with you, Graham. I think their work, especially during these trying times, has been invaluable. So I'm pleased to support that recommendation as well. So yes to both of those.
Thank you, Councillor Reid.
Okay, is there anything else we should be discussing in this decision day?
Not for me.
Right, well, I'll close the meeting then, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please.